Hi, my name is Megan Knipe, and I'm a student at Liberty University, and today I'm presenting my interpersonal communication project for my class HSCO 508. Today I'm going to be talking about some different things that I have learned revolving around interpersonal communications, how I am as a communicator, how I am as a listener, and my strengths and weaknesses regarding interpersonal communications. In Stewart's book, Bridges Not Walls, he says that interpersonal communication goes from being impersonal to interpersonal. His definition of interpersonal communication is the exchange of communication between two people. There is a listener and there is a speaker. And communication interpersonally does not just mean what we say verbally. It also has to do with our body language, our posture, our eye contact, and little cues that we give that aren't verbal. So that it all has to do with interpersonal communication, and it has to do with what we are giving off, what we are putting out, and what we are receiving. An overview of interpersonal communication. Stewart discusses the importance of communication as a type of action where two or more people talk and listen as a way to maximize the presence of personal and genuine connection between one another. He also discusses interpersonal communication skills, how they are learned behaviors. We aren't just born knowing how to communicate properly. We have to work at it to build those relationships with others, and we have to be very careful as human services counselors also how we are communicating, what message we are sending to our client or to those who we are trying to build a relationship with. So the main points that I'm going to talk about today are my overarching goal, the career that I have in mind for myself, and how I can integrate interpersonal communication with that career, and what strengths and weaknesses I have already, and how I can best work on myself so that I can be the best therapist that I can be one day. Also, behavioral blend and background. I'm going to talk about my Uniquely You profile, that I took the Uniquely You quiz at the beginning of the semester, and it told me a lot about myself and what kind of a communicator I am and what my strengths and weaknesses are and what my temperament is as well. I'm also going to talk about my background, where I'm from, kind of what communication skills I was taught and I learned from a young age that I have carried over into my adulthood. I'm also going to talk about my barriers in communication, what struggles I have, and through this course what I have learned and how I have learned to work on these struggles so that they can in turn become strengths. I'm also going to bring up my action plan, different steps that I have set for myself through the help of this course and scholarly articles that I have reviewed, and my professor and classmates, things that I have learned to help myself in my career and in my personal life to be a better communicator. So my overarching goal is to help and to heal the children that I work with and their families. I currently am an ABA therapist. I work with children who have autism, and I want to continue to do this after I get my degree. So my role of interpersonal communication in this field is I work with people on a daily basis. If I'm not working with a child, I'm talking to their parents, or I'm talking with a coworker on how we can best set a plan out for the child that we're working with, or I talk to my boss regarding the same thing. So all of those different relationships in the workplace revolve around interpersonal communications, and each one is different. I can't think of one relationship that I have in my job that is similar. I have to have a different set of skills used in each relationship. When I work with a kid or a parent or one of my coworkers, I have to use different tools that I have learned in this class and outside of this class. And at the same time, though, I can also use the same tools in different ways, if that makes sense. I have to learn, as Stuart also discusses, to inhale before exhaling, which in so many words means to think before I speak. That is really important because oftentimes it's easy for me just to say the first thing that pops into my head. But as a good, effective communicator, it is important for me to take a step back and to think before I speak. Behavioral blend and background. The Uniquely You quiz is set out to show us who we are as individuals. It shows us who I am and what I'm expected to be. The quiz has 4 basic temperament personalities. The letters are D, I, S, and C, and they stand for active, task-oriented, people-oriented, and passive. My results showed that I'm a very non-confrontational person, that I am a passive person, that I like to people please, and that I don't like to directly say what I'm feeling and what's on my mind. And this cannot be a good thing and a bad thing. I really want to help other people, but it comes to the point where I also need to set boundaries for myself and speak up when it's appropriate to speak up. A little bit about me. I'm from North Carolina. I'm 25 years old. I come from a family that likes to debate. They are confrontational. And I am not one of those people per se, so I think I'm different from them in that way. But my family growing up was always big on communicating and sharing your thoughts and feelings, and that is something that I'm grateful that I learned from an early age, even though it's also something I need to still continue to work on. Positives about me and my communication. I'm a good listener, I'm thoughtful of others' feelings, and I'm a very trustworthy person. Negatives, I can have selfish motives sometimes, as the Uniquely You quiz told me. I can be passive-aggressive. I can be a people pleaser to a fault occasionally, and I'm very non-confrontational, and sometimes it's good to have appropriate confrontation. Communication and barriers. Not honestly discussing what is on my mind, not articulating my thoughts in a rational manner, being a passive-aggressive, not listening to hear what others have to say. Active listening is a really important thing that I've learned in this class. Nelson wrote in his article about active listening, and he was talking about the importance of listening to hear and not listening to just respond. That's very important. So those are different things that are barriers for me in my communication and things that I need to work on to become a better interpersonal communicator. Resources and strategies. According to Nelson in his article also, he discussed honest communication. Nelson discusses how open, honest communication can allow individuals to communicate more effectively, even when the topic at hand is difficult. Roloff, in his article, discussed how being open-minded and non-judgmental are also very important parts of communication, because we don't want the listener to feel like we are, we don't want the communicator to feel like we are judging them as we're listening. We want to be non-judgmental, we want to be accepting, and we need to show that in our body language and in our eye contact and our facial expressions too. That's really important also. Stuart, in his book, mentioned mindful listening and how important it is to enter a conversation with a blank slate and not have assumptions prior to the conversation. Stuart also mentions articulation, and he teaches ETC, enlarging the conversation, which encourages communicators to have 2 specific goals in mind throughout the conversation, which are ownership and openness. Ask questions for clarification, be clear when articulating your side of the conversation, and active listening. So my action plan, TLC, Talker Listener Card, is a great way to start practicing how to be a good communicator, because it will give each person the chance to talk and listen, and it will be fair and it will be easy. And after a while, you won't need it. Be more genuine and open-minded when listening. Enter a conversation with a blank slate. Use empathy, and set boundaries. These are all important parts of being an effective communicator to help build strong relationships and to set goals for myself that will encourage me to be the best communicator that I can be. Psalms 19:14, let the words of my mouth and the message of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer, the New International Version. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation about interpersonal communication. I appreciate all of you, and I'm very grateful to be a part of Liberty University. Thanks.